السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
السلام.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. حي على حي على حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
لا إله إلا الله.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهد الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن نبينا وحبيبنا وعظيمنا وإمامنا وقائدنا وقرة عيننا وقدوتنا محمدا عبد الله ورسوله صلى الله تعالى عليه وسلم. نشهد بأنه قد بلغ الرسالة وأدى الأمانة ونصح الأمة وجعلها على المحجة البيضاء ليلها كنهارها لا يزيغ عنها إلا هالك. أما بعد، فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله، وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله تعالى عليه وسلم، وشر الأمور محدثاتها، وكل محدثة بدعة، وكل بدعة ضلالة، وكل ضلالة في النار. أما بعد، يقول الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه العزيز بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم: يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد. All praises and thanks are due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We bear witness and testify that there is no deity or divinity truly worthy of worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. And we bear witness that Muhammad, may Allah's peace and blessings be upon him and his family and his companions and his followers. Indeed, we bear witness that he is the last of messengers and prophets sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to all of mankind with the message of Islam and Tawheed, and that is We ask Allah to make us among those who follow that message and live by that message and die holding and carrying and living that message. My dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. A belated Eid Mubarak. I haven't seen most of you since Eid. So in America, I always allow ourselves about a month to continue to say Eid Mubarak. It's a big place and we don't get to see each other. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us among those who witness these seasons, inshallah, with renewal in our lifestyle and our commitment to Islam. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us all among those who get to visit or revisit Allah's sacred house in Mecca to perform the Hajj. And may Allah accept from those who performed the Hajj and came back. Inshallah, hope Allah accept them, accept their rituals, accept their performance, and give them good health, because there's everybody who gets the Hajj flu usually when you come back. So inshallah, may Allah keep them strong spiritually and health-wise. What I would like to address today is something described sometimes, many of you have heard the term perfect storm. There was a book or a movie, anyone who had the chance to watch that. It's about when so many factors come together to create the worst kind of storm you can imagine, or the worst case scenario as they use sometimes in business or sociology. We are today living through what I would like to describe humbly as the perfect storm in dealing with anti-Muslim sentiment today. Why is that, and what are these factors? And inshallah, hopefully I will not have to elaborate on most of these factors, because we've covered a lot of them in different khutbahs, myself, Sheikh Yasser, and many others who have come and spoke here. But these factors have come together at this time to make it one of the hardest times for Muslims in recent times to live in or live through. First of all, it's election time. You know, every time there's election, you know, in America, a month before election, till day of election, they need a boogeyman. They need a punching bag. You know, you can't do that against other communities, or still they try, but you can't get away with it if you try to target other communities, and at least not as easily as it is when you're targeting Muslims. So now when you notice an increase in the number of attacks on Islam, on Muslims, demonizing the Muslims, Islamic teaching. So you hear a lot of candidates, you hear a lot of political parties, suddenly in America I'm talking about specifically, targeting Islam and Muslims. So for that I say, this doesn't mean it's acceptable, but keep in mind that this is what is happening, and develop some thick skin. It doesn't mean we don't respond to them, but my point is, don't take it too personally. Don't think this is, oh, suddenly they became more anti-Muslim than usual. It's the same people who are usually racist, misinformed, bigoted, but this is the way to appeal to their base. Because there's a base in America, whether it's the Tea Party type, or more right, or more to the left of that, but there's a middle ground there of base, of voters who enjoy hearing anti-Muslim sentiment. The fear of Islam works for them. And unfortunately, that's who they are appealing to. Of course, it does not help when there is another factor involved. And by the way, I'm not checking my emails or posting on Facebook. I'm trying to go green, saving on paper, so I'm reading from my phone. The second factor that is of concern to us, obviously, is the growing Islamophobia industry, and that is not new. Something we have witnessed over the last 10, 15 years, an industry that spends literally tens of millions of dollars every year, specifically to create fear of Islam and misinformation about Islam. This is not just about people who misunderstand Islam. I'm not talking about that. There are a lot of these. We're talking about a very focused group, not a large group, small number of people. We talked about it. Just in 4 years, they spent $120 million, as CARE did a study. In 4 years, 2008 to 2011, $120 million were spent by about 35 agencies, organizations, only, solely, exclusively to promote fear of Islam, misinformation about Islam. This is an industry. These are people who make thousands of dollars to go and speak. These are people who make hundreds of thousands of dollars in salaries to talk about it on TV. These are pundits. These are people who write books, who describe themselves as so-called experts on Islam. So it's an industry that will not go away. Obviously, it's pushing for that hatred and fear of Islam and Muslims. The third factor that we're going through nowadays is the unusual, increased or additional brutality of the terrorists of ISIS. You know, there has been other terrorists who have done crazy things. The Boko Haram once in a while, groups come here, groups come there. We've seen attacks falsely in the name of Islam. But ISIS is obviously obsessed with getting attention. So not only they're committing the same gruesome crimes, but it's videotaping these crimes and making sure that it sends to the world. Choosing some of the people who, instead of, you know, if this happens in a war zone, most people probably wouldn't care. But when you attack a relief worker, you pick a relief worker coming from the UK all the way to Syria, and you behead that person. And you show it on video. What is the intention? Obviously, they're trying to get as much publicity as they can. This is meant to create fear, intimidation, to become notorious, famous, infamous, obviously. That does not help, because now it's giving Islamophobes, it's giving the Islamophobia industry reasons to say, look, we told you these Muslims are a threat. We told you, look what Islam says. This is what every Muslim would eventually be doing. And even those who are not doing it now, they're not doing it because, you know, we're waiting for the signal, as they would say, or we haven't received the order or the right opportunity, because we are all sleeper cells according to these Islamophobes. So they're using these criminal behaviors or this really gruesome crimes, linking it to Islam. And unfortunately, here it's groups like ISIS make it easy. Because what does ISIS call itself? The Islamic State. What kind of slogans? We talked about that. You know, the slogan of the Prophet ﷺ, Khutbah Rasul ﷺ. It's, you know, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. It calls itself the Islamic Khilafah, Sharia. So it uses every Islamic symbol that is dear to us and that represents something positive in our history and our understanding to manipulate it and link it to something so inhumane, so barbaric. So obviously it's making the job of the Islamophobes much easier, because they don't even need to stretch that this is linked to Islam. All they have to do is just quote people like ISIS. Anyone who has heard, they even recently published a paper in their newsletter describing proudly how they enslaved or how they kidnapped women and children who happen to be of Azeri, a different religion that exists, a small minority in Iraq. They are proudly saying how they are reviving Islam by enslaving them and using them as sex slaves. This is in their magazine. This is not Western media. This is not Islamophobia. This is on their website and their newsletter. So it makes the job easier. So you bring this factor also to the whole sum to make this perfect storm that I'm talking about. And again, this goes against the teachings of Islam, and it's easy for us to refute that. Islam, if anyone asks, always simple to say, the reason Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent His messenger Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam as a mercy to mankind. Actually, the way the verse comes, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا. We have not sent you, O Muhammad, except. So it's not even, O Muhammad, we've sent you as a mercy to mankind, along many other things. In Arabic, the language here is illa, adat al-hasr. It's exception. Basically, we have not sent you. Allah is saying, we have not sent you, O Muhammad, except as a mercy to mankind. This is the sole purpose. And mercy includes everything. Da'wah, tawheed, justice, human brotherhood, establishing what's good, forbidding what's evil. That's the mercy. Not slaughtering innocent people just because they belong to a different nationality, because now they even have a Muslim who they're threatening to slaughter him. And by the way, for those who think this is against Muslims, the overwhelming majority of ISIS victims have been Muslims. We're talking about 98%. In one city alone, in Deir ez-Zor in Syria, and I mentioned that last time, 700 Muslims, Sunnis, were slaughtered by them. So I don't want anyone to think, oh, this is warfare, it's happening. This is a group that thinks like the Khawarij, operates like the Khawarij, and it's important for us as Muslims not to feel guilty that we have to apologize on their behalf, but we have to strongly clarify that this is not Islam. This is not acceptable. We don't apologize for the crimes of thugs. they're responsible for their crimes. The other factor that adds to the equation, I would like everyone to come forward so inshallah we can make room for those who are in the back. Please take a second, 5 seconds to come forward inshallah so we can make room for those in the back. And I always say, if anyone has doubt about what ISIS is doing and who is behind it and what kind of actions they're doing, ask your brothers and sisters from Syria. Just take 5 minutes and ask your brothers and sisters from Syria, and they will tell you what kind of crimes they've been committing against the people of Syria. Not against the regime, the oppressive, repressive regime of Assad, but against the people of Syria who have been struggling for freedom. They will tell you how many they've killed and how many they've slaughtered. The other factor, my dear brothers and sisters, that comes and works against us is the strong belief in conspiracy theory that exists in our country, in our community, and our ummah at large. نظرية المؤامرة. We are so obsessed by that anything that happens is always a conspiracy. Any action that happens or doesn't happen, it's the work of the intelligence agencies. يعني والعياذ بالله, we almost put them at the level of a God, of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah forgive us. We think as if they control, there is nothing that they don't want to do that doesn't happen or happens. It's almost like they are in control. We forget Allah's power. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is above all. And Allah will not let anything happen if He didn't want it to happen. So, وَيَمْكُرُونَ وَيَمْكُرُ اللَّهُ وَاللَّهُ خَيْرُ الْمَاكِرِينَ. We know that. They plot and Allah plots, and Allah is the best of plotters and planners. So, yes, others plan, but we shouldn't get obsessed with it. That is number one. Number two, and I've talked about that, so I'm not going in details. Maybe a year ago, if you remember, I've talked about that. Basically, when we talk about conspiracies, what happens with us is we start thinking we don't have to do anything. We don't have to change. If ISIS or extremists or fanatics or murderers or dictators or repressive and unjust rulers are part of a conspiracy, then we think it is not our problem anymore. We don't have to struggle against that. We don't have to make jihad against ourselves, against our weaknesses as an ummah, as individuals. We don't have to address the problems because it's no longer our problem. This is the problem of the conspirators. They are the ones who brought it, they have to deal with it. Alhamdulillah, we're the perfect ummah. We don't have any flaws. We sit down and curse those who are bringing us the conspiracies. So no longer we have to challenge the status quo. No longer we have to make amr bil ma'roof wa nahy 'anil munkar. We don't have to enjoin good and forbid evil because there's no evil. The evil is only the result of conspiracies. So until they stop, evil will disappear. Or evil will not disappear until they stop. That's wrong. Yes, there might be conspiracies. Yes, might be foreign interventions. But there is a time when we have to take ownership, responsibility of things. There are problems that exist, whether it's our fault or not, but it's our issue to deal with. Injustice or not, it's something we have to address. The other factor that exists also to add to create this perfect storm is we're dealing with a government, with an administration, our own government, that lacks principle and courage. You know, we complained about the previous administration that was aggressive, fighting, invading. Now we have an administration that shies away from any role. It's an administration that actually has taken the same route as other administrations. Meaning, we continue to be in bed with dictators. We continue to be silent about repression or repressive regimes like Assad. You know, until for 3.5 years we've watched as international community, but specifically our own government, as Assad slaughtered over 200,000 Syrians. And only rhetoric, talks. Assad's days are numbered. We stand by the Syrian people. But in reality, we've stopped any attempt from helping the Syrian people defend themselves. We've watched that repression and did not act. Add to this, we've actually supported the repressive regimes and dictatorships. As our government, using our tax money, we continue to send military support to governments that are known to violate human rights. We continue to send military support to governments that we know are a result of an illegal coup d'etat, military coup against an elected, democratically elected government. Talking about Egypt. And I know some people will not like that. But the reality is, we have a double standard, and that is actually adding to the pressure, because you have a government that is not pushing for principles. Add to this, our government continues, and just last July added to its record, by standing in an unconditional way in support of Israel's occupation and murder and brutality in Gaza and the rest of Palestine. Israel's apartheid regime. We continue to send taxpayers' money to Israel to continue to support its illegitimate behavior and illegal behavior. And that does not help, because then you have that factor adding to the mess that we're dealing with. And of course, another factor, and we'll conclude with some of these factors. The other factor is that we have government agencies that are not fair. Government agencies that talk about interested in securing our country. But in reality, what are they doing? Promoting this fear. Government agencies that are supposed to be our national federal law enforcement agencies. What are they doing? Sending agents and agents provocateurs and informants to the mosque and to the Muslim youth, trying to entrap them into becoming engaged in illegal behavior. For the record, the FBI specifically, in specific, has been much more successful in recruiting young American Muslims, turning them from mainstream normal kids into engaging in terrorism than Al-Qaeda and ISIS combined have been. This is statistics that I can show you. They've been more successful in entrapping young people who were not engaged in anything illegal, anything terroristic, anything extremist. But somehow the paid agent was successful in shifting them from being normal kids playing video games into, or not so normal, smoking marijuana as some of these cases, into getting involved in illegal behavior, and then getting arrested, and then the FBI announcing the foiling of terrorist cases. So it is a little bit hard for us to believe when the FBI or the Department of Justice talks about initiating programs that will help counter Muslim youth radicalism or radicalization, or programs known as CVE, countering violent extremism. It is hard to take that seriously when it's the same agency that has promoted this violent extremism more so successfully than Al-Qaeda and ISIS combined. By the way, statistically speaking, there is no more, according to the government, no more than 12 Americans fighting on the side of ISIS as we speak now. So all this talk, as bad as it is, wallah, in my opinion, even if one goes and fight, it's a horrible thing. But let's put things in perspective. 12. There are more people who get killed every year by local police departments in major cities. Sometimes in even 2-month period. So to put things in perspective, obviously we have government agencies that are exploiting this tragedy in order to advance its budget, to push its, to justify a lot of its abuses, civil rights abuses, constitutional abuses, and surveillance, and so on and so forth. So all these factors make things a little bit difficult for us to counter. And you add to it, in my opinion, the biggest factor of all. In my humble opinion, my dear brothers and sisters, the biggest factor we face today is a crisis of akhlaq. There is no shortage of knowledge around the Muslim world. There is no shortage of spirituality. MashaAllah, every year 2 million people make Hajj, and millions others go make Umrah throughout the year. MashaAllah, the number of masajid in the world is the largest we've ever had in the history of Islam. The number of scholars, the number of hifaz, the number of printed books, printed Quran. We've had no more in the history more than what we have now. But there is a crisis of akhlaq, crisis of character. We have people who pray and worship, but yet enjoy and celebrate the death of fellow Muslims because they don't agree with them politically, or nationally, or racially, because they think this is from another country, I will celebrate their demise. Or they belong to this political party, then their massacres are okay. They don't deserve because they're not human beings, even if they're shot at while they're unarmed in protest squares. We have a crisis of akhlaq when some of us come to the masajid, not at this masjid here. Wallahi, I've seen it with my own eyes. We park illegally, we block the entrances to businesses and homes so we can go and make 2 rak'ahs to pray Jum'ah. La akhi, drop Jum'ah. Skip Jum'ah if you're going to cause nuisance or harm to someone else so they can start cursing at you and Islam. Allah will forgive you. Come in late. Find another place to park and come. Or those of us who make Hajj and make Umrah and pray and mistreat our co-workers or workers or maids. If anyone has visited the Middle East and see the abuse, how people get abused because of their race, if you belong to certain races, may Allah help you. Look at how, if you belong to certain nationalities, how they're treated. Less than the way animals are treated in this country. This is in the Muslim world. And these people pray, and these people make Hajj, and these people make zakat. But there's a missing azmat akhlaq. The way we deal each other. If we disagree with one another, we curse one another. We become enemies. We send threats to each other. I will never talk to you. Especially when it comes to Muslims among themselves. If your boss, if your co-worker who's not Muslim makes the same mistake, subhanAllah, we're so forgiving. Very forgiving. He didn't mean, he didn't know. But when it comes to each other, subhanAllah, we've lacked that. So I think, in my opinion, the biggest problem we're dealing with today is how can we revive, because there is no religion without akhlaq. As the Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُمْ لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ. I was sent to complete and perfect character. I want to bring, Islam did not invent, but Islam is building on it and perfecting them. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, that's my mission, to help people learn about akhlaq. Our religion stresses akhlaq. It's a big chunk of our religion. If someone's behavior is harming other people, justifying injustice, defending dictatorships, defending those who abuse power, from leaders to bosses at employment, then there's something wrong in our understanding of Islam. And this is where we have to change. With all these factors said, my dear brothers and sisters, this is what is bringing to us this perfect storm nowadays, where we're facing problems that we're having a hard time addressing. We don't know what to do with. Either we feel down, we feel apologetic, we feel that we can't change things. It's beyond our capability. And my advice is to remember that as long as we are changing ourselves and others, Allah will spare us the punishment. And Allah will give us, inshallah, the ability to change. We have to put an end to this culture of self-blame, self-defeat. We cannot make a difference. This fear of speaking up, being apologetic about everything. Remember that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, إِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا. Allah says, with ease comes, with hardship comes ease. مَعَ الْعُسْرِ, not after the usr. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not say, إِنَّ بَعْدَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا. مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا, with the hardship. So as we see and as we're dealing with the hardship on a personal level, at a communal level or at an ummah level, rest assured, be confident, have faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that ease is going to come with it, inshallah, when we make righteousness, when we live righteousness. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us in the Holy Quran, وَمَا كَانَ رَبُّكَ لِيُهْلِكَ الْقُرَى بِظُلْمٍ وَأَهْلُهَا مُصْلِحُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Hud, and your Lord would never punish or destroy communities, countries, people, nations, would never destroy these communities based on some mistake that they did or wrongfully from Allah or unjustly from Allah. Both meanings are correct, as long as its people are engaged in promoting righteousness. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not say وَأَهْلُهَا صَالِحُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is very careful, the choices are not random. Allah is putting specific words for a specific reason. And in this case, as our mufassirun say, Allah did not say Allah will not punish any nation as long as people are righteous. Being righteous means nothing. Muslih, salih is righteous. Muslih is someone who is righteous but also engaging in correcting wrong, challenging wrong, correcting people, reforming people. We have to be that. We have to be the community that inshallah takes Islam seriously to reform itself. We have to correct ourselves. We know where we deviated from Islam. Let's bring back ourselves to where Islam is. We don't bring Islam to where we would like to be. This is the problem, where sometimes we misunderstand Islah or reform. We think, let's reform Islam to where we feel good about it. So let's cancel things that make me uncomfortable. Speaking up against injustice, changing my lifestyle. No, we have to change, so we have to become comfortable to where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to be, the way Islam is. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us that ummah that is righteous in the way we live our life, to mend the wrong in our life and in our ummah, to speak up against injustice so we can bring akhlaq back up there. Because all the problems that we listed will disappear if our akhlaq go hand in hand in compliance with our deen. We know Islam, we know how many rak'ahs dhuhr is and asr is, we know when to fast, how to fast, we know all of that. There's no shortage of knowledge, and if there is shortage, we can learn it. Akhlaq is where we need to work hard. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه فيا فوز المستغفرين. استغفر الله. Bismillah wa alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah amma ba'd. Just quick notes, inshallah, and we'll conclude with dua. Two things that are important that I would like to bring your attention to. First one is, as you know, November 4th is election day. Make sure you have registered to vote. The deadline to be able to vote in this election is approaching, so do not delay it. Today, go on Saturday or Monday to the DMV. You can go to the post office. If you've changed your address recently, and if you have never registered before, that's the time to do it. Obviously, you can still do absentee ballots, so you have to fill it out and ask for the absentee. The key thing is be informed. Alhamdulillah, the masjid hosted a forum last week. I hope most of you were able to attend. Be informed so we can make a difference. So elected officials would know that this community is educated and is proud about its views and its principles and values. And we are going to reward those who stand by these good values, and we will politically punish those who contradict and oppose those values, whether it's domestic or international, whether it's about immigration, whether it's about healthcare, whether it's about justice here and abroad. But it's important to be educated. For that, CARE has published a voter guide. It's available outside. Brother Mustafa is going to be at the booth outside. Please carry it. It gives you our recommendation for the upcoming propositions. They are important propositions that will make an impact on your life. And also it has a scorecard of every elected official at the state level and the federal level from California. So please pick it up so you'll be, inshallah, informed for your next election. The second thing is CARE's banquet. As many of you, November 8th is CARE's annual banquet. This is our 18th annual banquet, and CARE cannot continue standing up for our rights, standing up against Islamophobes, exposing Islamophobia, empowering our community politically, training, building, developing leaders within our community, especially our youth, protecting our civil rights at the workplace, against government abuses, against all sorts of abuses who are trying to restrict our ability to practice our religion. We cannot do that without your support. We don't receive government funding. We don't receive foreign government funding. We are 100% funded by this community. If you want those services to continue for free and continue to happen on your behalf, you have to be part of it, my dear brothers and sisters. We cannot be on the side, alhamdulillah, CARE is doing a great job, masjid is doing a great job. This is your organization. The masjid, the school, the CARE, the relief, all of this is your organization. And it's up to us to make it as strong as we want to be. The sooner, the stronger we are, the sooner we can deal with some of the challenges that I listed. So I urge you, inshallah, as you're leaving, to get the information, get the tickets, be there, and commit your support in person and, inshallah, financially. Quick announcement, inshallah, from the masjid that I hope you attend. Tonight's Quran class will be at 5 p.m. The youth group is meeting tonight after Maghrib with Sheikh Yasir at the Pillars Academy. Uplift Charity is holding a toy drive at the masjid here at OCIF. Please drop off your toys donation no later than tomorrow so they can be distributed on Sunday. So please, if you have extra toys you want to donate, do so everybody can enjoy Eid. Also, the Open Day Mosque is a great opportunity to invite your co-workers, your neighbors, and your family members. It's going to be here at the masjid on Sunday, this Sunday, between 11 and 3. So please remember the date. It's a great da'wah, great chance to educate, great way to dispel a lot of misperceptions that people have about Islam. It's a great chance to interact with Muslims face to face, including yourselves and your colleagues. So please try to be there. As I mentioned, CARE events on November 8th. Keynote speakers is Tawakkul Karman, the youngest person to receive the Nobel Peace Prize, only the second Muslim to ever receive that. She's from Yemen, called the mother of the revolution, mashallah, spoke for human rights and freedom for all people in the world. She is the keynote speaker. The other person is Rashida Tlaib, the assembly representative or the Congress representative from Michigan, basically. First Muslim to be elected to that place. And Mass Muslim American Society will be holding its annual convention on November 27th and 29th at the Pasadena Convention Center. Please check them out. Their information is all over here and online. Inshallah, we'll conclude with dua. عباد الله إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا وحبيبنا محمد كما صليت وسلمت وباركت على سيدنا إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد اللهم اقسم لنا من خشيتك ما تحول به بيننا وبين معصيتك ومن طاعتك ما تبلغنا به جنتك ومن اليقين ما تهون به علينا مصائب الدنيا اللهم متعنا بأسماعنا وأبصارنا وقواتنا وذرياتنا أبدا ما أحييتنا، واجعله الوارث منا، واجعل ثأرنا على من ظلمنا، ولا تسلط علينا بذنوبنا من لا يخافك فينا ولا يرحمنا. اللهم نسألك أن ترحم موتانا وموتى جميع المسلمين، وتعافي مرضانا ومرضى جميع المسلمين. ونخص بالدعاء المتوفى الأخ حسن سكاكيني، توفي في لبنان. We make special dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive for brother Hassan Sakakini, who passed away in Lebanon due to sickness. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant him forgiveness and mercy in Jannah, and grant his parents sabr, patience inshallah, to accept Allah's destiny and Allah's fate, Allah's decision. عباد الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. اذكروا الله يذكركم واشكروه على نعمه يزدكم وأقم الصلاة.